I'm talking about the record temperatures that have been declared for like the past 5 years that have also increased with the concentration of parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Um, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that every model is perfect,
They're
but
not
right now,
perfect.
sure. But right now, we're like standing in traffic with our eyes closed, saying the car hasn't hit me yet, so I don't think there's any coming. I think it's pretty undeniable at this point that there is an impact on climate across the planet. I just
I
don't
think
know.
that's highly deniable. We have no idea what the impact is from. We don't know where the carbon dioxide is from. We can't measure the warming of the oceans. We have terrible temperature records going back 100 years. Almost all the terrestrial temperature uh, detection sites were first put outside urban areas, and then as
And then
the right,
cities,
and
they
then you
measure
have to
warming.
correct. Then you have to correct for the movement of the urban areas, and then you introduce an error parameter that's larger than the purported increase in temperature that you're planning to measure. This isn't data. This is guess, and there's something weird underneath it. There's something weird that isn't oriented well towards human beings underneath it. It has this guise of compassion. Oh, we're going to save the poor in the future. It's like that's what the bloody communists said. And they killed a lot of people doing it.
What's going on, everyone's talking Kenny. Woo! Jordan Peterson debated Destiny. He had him on his show that they went to talk about his political career as a streamer, his philosophy on things. And they got this viral clip that's been going on and everyone's giving their thoughts. And I think of myself as the climate guy, because I've been saying this the most about the climate change agenda. That is an anti-human agenda. And I got this framing from a book called Fossil Future by, I think, Alex Epstein is the name of the author of the book that I recommend a lot. And he talks about how it's an anti-human movement. Essentially, his argument is, and I agree with this argument, is that the climate change agenda has to center itself about human prosperity. But if you look at the prescriptions that a lot of these climate activists push, it's a very anti-human agenda. Clean energy is less energy. That's the reality. They want us to stop emitting carbon. They want us to stop having less kids. They want us to have less kids so we don't pollute the planet. Oh my God, we got climate anxiety. People are more fearful. People are talking about, hey, you shouldn't reproduce because there's not going to be a planet in 12 years. And I like the intro that Jordan Peterson came in. He came in hot because these people, these same people like Destiny, will rely on these models, these flawed models that don't accurately call anything. We had the hottest year since in 2023. We had the hottest year. He didn't even describe the exact number. 1%, maybe 1 degree hot. We're half a degree hotter than we were last year, and it wasn't even the hottest. We hit this before, long time ago. And then when you ask these climate change people, okay, when was the perfect climate? Because we went through an ice age. This planet was entirely water. This planet was entirely ice. So which period in our history, in the planet's history, was the correct climate? And this is the perspective I agree against this. I take against the climate changers is that I don't care about climate change. I care about climate danger. Show me how the climate changing is dangerous for human flourishing. Last time I checked, the human condition benefits from a warmer climate, not a colder climate. If I were to put the death toll between how many people died of heat versus died of cold, give us heat every time. That actually helps prosperity. And I talk about the inefficiencies of solar and wind and how it doesn't produce enough energy. It's too expensive to produce enough energy to power our entire infrastructure. Our entire infrastructure, especially around the world, 80% of it is held up by fossil fuels. Solar, wind combined only make up 5% of that. And the cost effectiveness to make the same amount of energy that it will take to produce a sizable amount for our infrastructure, for our country, there's not enough space on our continent to hold enough solar panels to power the entire infrastructure of the United States of America. Solar wind is inefficient to replace fossil fuels. So if you want to replace fossil fuels, what you have to do? The solution, less energy. Less energy. That means you need less people. That's why they're so big for, hey, let's stop having kids. Hey, population reduction. It makes it easier to transition to solar. And this is a negative externalities that a lot of these climate change people who push for a command economy or a mixed economy, they don't keep this into account. And one thing about this mixed economy BS that I hear a lot of people talking about is that in of itself produces inefficiencies. Your system still has to cater to one or the other. Maybe 20%, maybe 2 out of 10 you could do is like some type of socialist type policies, but the direction of it still has to be capitalistic, like school choice. The power's not in the government's hands. All you did is, here's money, citizens, you do it. You do free market capitalism with it. You make decisions on it. But that's still a capitalist system. Instead of free healthcare, free this, centralized control. Because based on the example that Destiny gave, he wants a command economy. Oh, we want to do a price tag, a penalty on corporations who don't follow the green agenda. But the green agenda is still mandated by a centralized institution who gets it wrong, who over the past 100 years have a bad track record. How many of the people that are quoted in these climate studies, if you look at their actual profession gives them no credibility to actually make climate predictions. Dude works in eco science for materials, and he's trying to give you predictions about the weather. Make it make sense. But this is the kind of games and appeals to authority that the left like to do. And I know I went on a long tangent, but I'm pretty passionate about the climate change stuff because I believe climate change is BS. Climate change is an exaggerated problem. Like I just told you, in 2023, we were 1 degree hotter. Next thing you know, they're going to complain about we coldest year ever. Oh my God, 0.5 degrees colder than it was a year ago. Quick, change up your entire system to go on an unreliable energy source. Look at New York. Look at California. This is why they got rolling blackouts, because the grid doesn't produce enough energy to power the entire state. And they don't talk about the negative side effects of a society that's used to producing a lot of power. Our water relies on power. Our day of life, our communications rely on power. You're going to turn us back into the caveman days. But I digress. I've been talking enough lately already on this video. So in this clip, I'm going to give you a 2-minute clip about how the setup happened to get to that explosive intro that we got into the beginning. Let's take a look.
Negative externalities. That's an interesting rabbit hole to wander down, because the problem I have with negative externalities, you made a case already that, and again, correct me if I've got this wrong, but I think that I understood what you said. A free market, free exchange economy is a gigantic distributed computational device.
Basically, yeah.
Right, exactly. And
Which, funnily enough, one of the big problems for command economies is called the computation problem, because no central body can actually compute, the ins and outs of.
Right, exactly. Right. That's a fatal problem, right? Because it doesn't have the computational power. It certainly doesn't have the speed of data recognition. It doesn't have the on-the-ground agents if all of the perception and decision-making is centralized, right? It's way too low resolution. It's going to crash. Okay, and I think that that's comprehensible technically as well as ideologically. All right, but having said that, with regards to externalities, all the externalities that a market economy can't compute are so complex that they can't be determined centrally by the same argument. And
there are ways to account for them, though.
Really?
That work with.
Tell me.
Yeah.
How. Because I can't see that. Because I can't see how that they can be accounted for without the same computational problem immediately arising.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I think that's a problem sometimes of people very far on the left when they want to deal with certain problems. I think that they want to bring like heavy-handed, like things like price controls in to say, well, we need less of this, so let's just make this cost this particular thing, which ironically enough introduces a whole other set of externalities that will happen when you get a lot of friction between where your price floor or ceiling is set compared to what a market was set at. But ideally, if you're a reasonable person and you view economies as mixed economies, what you try to do is you try to take these externalities, meaning things that aren't accounted for with your primary system. So in a capitalist system, an externality might be something that causes a negative effect, but it doesn't cost you any money. Pollution would be a good example of that. And rather than saying like, well, no company can pollute this much, or, if you're a company, you have to use these things because the other things are making too much pollution, all you do is you say, okay, well, if we've determined that, say, carbon is bad for the atmosphere, well, we're just going to attach a little price to that.
Okay,
Government is going to say that, yeah, if you pollute this much, here's the price. And then if you want to pay for it, you can. But that type of intervention in the economy basically allows the free market to hopefully do its job, because the government has tacked on a little bit of a price ceiling that tries to account for the cost of that externality. Yeah.
So I guess you guys gave you the setup. So I'm going to go into the video along with you guys, and we'll continue seeing exactly how it got to where we got to in the intro of the video. And before I give my final thoughts, is that when Jordan Peterson saying there's something anti-human about it, I honestly believe that none of the climate change agenda is centered around the betterment of the human condition. I think it's just centered around, hey, how can we justify our control? How can we justify people giving up their means of control, their land, change their whole lifestyle based on what we dictate them they should do? And this is why I say that the climate change agenda is merely a smokescreen for a globalist, socialist agenda. That's just my final thoughts before we get into the video. So let's dive in.
It tries to account for the cost of that externality. Yeah.
Great. That's a great example. We can go right down that rabbit hole. Carbon. Okay, so first of all, one of the things I've seen, you tell me what you think about this, something that I've seen that actually shocks me, that I was interested in watching over the last 5 or 6 years. I wondered what would happen when the left, the progressives, ran into a conundrum. And the conundrum is quite straightforward. If you pursue carbon pricing and you make energy more expensive, then you hurt the poor. And I don't think you just hurt them. In fact, I know you just don't hurt them. I heard a man 2 days ago who's fed 350 million people in the course of his life, heading the UN's largest relief agency, make the claim quite straightforwardly that misappropriation on the part of interventionist governments increased the rate of absolute privation dramatically in the world over the last 4 or 5 years. And
it's similar to the policy of California forcing people to transition into electric cars. I think in Ireland, I forgot, I did a video when I was exposing like Al Gore's little climate change narrative. I talk a lot about climate change on this channel. Y'all don't realize I don't talk about only race. I talk about climate change a lot, and how they use this draconian law to try to pressure people into moving into something that they don't want. Pure electric. If you look at the sales for electric cars, there's a lot of people who made the wrong bet on it. I think Hertz had it like they're stuck on inventory. Electric cars ain't selling because it's just expensive. 2021, when Democrat senators was bragging about, oh, this is why I have an electric. That's why you guys should switch to electric. When people were complaining about the gas pricing, it's an elitist dream. All it is to pressure people to go into a new fad. Just like the new fad was George Floyd, black squares. It's just to push you onto the new thing. Let us control you. This is another compliance pressure campaign, and they forcing this pressure on corporations because they got to worry about their ESG score. And this is the same kind of solution that Destiny was purporting. Hey, there should be some negative penalty if you pollute the government, if you pollute the planet. But you're already doing that, ESG. And the stuff you guys are advocating for, it probably causes more pollution because you still need oil for wind power, wind turbines, sorry. It's hard to recycle electric batteries. Wasteful. It's more expensive. And this was, I say all this just to say that when these people are pushing for a command economy, it has to be rooted in reality. It has to be rooted in evidence, not an agenda, not a narrative. And this is why it gets into this idea that I've been pushing on my channel, that the left is caught up in a secular religion, that their ideology in of itself has replaced what religion used to be. People, the reason why baby boomers have a common foundation compared to millennials is baby boomers used to believe and see the same vision of the same world. They were pro-America. They mostly were religious. They were more united as a social group compared to millennials and Gen Z of today. Because now, just like people had different ideologies, these ideologies in of itself has become a religion. Destiny sounded like he was preaching about how he saw the Holy Ghost of climate change. And that's how he comes across to me. And he's so confident too. But no one can deny. It is deniable. All the models, all the statistics, all the scientists you quote are flawed. They don't have any credibility in this field. They don't have credibility to make climate change predictions. They may work in the climate, or they may work in eco science or somewhere in some part of eco science, but their expertise is not dictating how cold or warm it's going to be. This is why all the prediction models has been flawed, because it was flawed from the start. But I digress. I'll let it continue.
And that has happened not least because of carbon pricing. Not just carbon pricing, but the insistence that carbon per se is an externality that we should control. Now, Germany's paid a radical price for that, for example. So their power is now about 5 times as expensive as it could be. And they pollute more per unit of power than they did 10 years ago before they introduced these policies that were hypothetically there to account for externality.
Exactly. Flawed thinking. Right? Instead of letting, like what the libertarians will call it, spontaneous order, leave the market alone. Like, you're meddling in it is what's causing the problems in the first place. You fix a problem, you create another problem. It's this idea. It's almost like socialists, and this is why I call socialists looters, because they don't really provide much value to the system. They just take what other people already produce and then you leverage it for themselves, and in a slow decline in a society. Germany was pretty much foreign policy wise handcuffed to Russia because of the direction they decided to do with clean energy. Oh, look, you Americans, you filthy Americans, you're burning so much fossil fuel. Look at us, we're clean. But they don't tell you how that electric infrastructure can't maintain all the energy demands of their country, so they have to have fossil fuel as a backup. They don't tell you that part. But yeah, we're burning less fossil fuels than everyone else. Let's virtue signal. Cut your nose to spite your face. That's the climate agenda. Climate change is a threat to human flourishing, because human nature, the human condition, has to make changes to the environment. That is like clothes. We made change to an environment to create clothes for ourselves, to keep ourselves warm. Literally, human survival is predicated on the ability of humans to change the climate for their own benefit, for their own flourishing. If humans do not change the environment, the world naturally kills us. Survival of the fittest, right? The world, if we left the world unchanged, we left it in its natural state, it'll kill us. How we make weapons to defend ourselves against lions? Break down a tree, create a spear. Break rock, make a spearhead, boom, we got a weapon for our survival. If you're pro climate change, then you're anti-human. That's the agenda that a lot of climate changers or climate activists are pushing on us. And that's why I'm not a big climate change activist. You want to call me a climate change denier? No, I'm a climate change skeptic, because I'm about climate danger. I care about climate danger. Okay, I care about climate change that threatens the survival of the human race. No study has proven that to me yet. All you told me is it's going to be hotter than it was last year. And I think that's a good thing. But I digress.
And the externality was carbon dioxide. I don't think that's a computable externality. And I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever that it's actually an externality that we should be warping the economic system to ameliorate, if the cost of that, and it will be an increase in absolute privation among the world's poor. So, and here's an additional argument on that front with regards to externalities. You get that wrong, and here's something you could get right instead. If you ameliorate absolute poverty among the world's 1 billion poorest, they take a longer view of the future. And that means they become environmentally aware. And so the fastest route to a sustainable planet could well be the remediation of absolute poverty. And the best route to that is cheap energy. And we're interfering with the development of cheap energy by meddling with the hypothetically detrimental externality of carbon dioxide. And so I think this is a complete bloody travesty, by the way. We are putting the lives of hundreds of millions of people directly at risk.
Yes, we are. Kids in Ghana can't afford energy, right? That's the cost of what happened if you don't have efficient, low-cost energy. If you don't burn fossil fuels, there won't be hospitals enough to power incubators for premature born children. We'll have more children dying in the U.S. if we rely more on solar or wind than we do on fossil fuels. Energy is literally, has a one-to-one relationship to prosperity for the human race. That's why I said clean energy is less energy. That's the only way you can achieve clean energy goals. If less people use it. That's it. If you want to look at the effects of clean energy, what happens if we put clean energy in? Look at California, rolling blackouts. Now, what happens if the rolling blackouts happen at the wrong time for a premature born child? That child dies. What happens if you don't have enough energy to power ultrasounds to see and diagnose if a child a woman's going to have medical complications because there's not enough power to generate these machines that's in your hospitals? These are the kind of domino effects that a single individual cannot think of a centralized power cannot think of. The capital market can, though. Spontaneous order can here. And this is where I become a free market capitalist. Because capitalism is about productivity and efficiency. What's the most productive and the most efficient energy source in the world right now? Fossil fuels. Second, nuclear energy. And guess what? The climate changers don't like either of them. And Jordan Peterson, if you want a more simplified version of what Jordan Peterson is saying, worrying about climate change is a first world problem. I'll leave it at there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you guys are thinking about this debate. Well, you found this insightful, fruitful. I think it was a good conversation. I think from the left, Destiny's are more of the reasonable ones, but he still gets things wrong, in my view anyway. Let me hear yours in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I really enjoy you guys watching to the end of the video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.